Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome back to the Staying Woke podcast episode
4.
4.
Damn, moving quick.
Long awaited.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we had a little break between episode 3 and this episode. A few things happened.
Yeah.
But don't worry, man. We're back. We're back with some amazing content for you, inshallah. How you been, Ashraf?
Alhamdulillah, not bad. Surviving, getting through the weeks.
Yeah.
How you been?
Alhamdulillah, I've been alright. Been busy, but we're always busy, innit?
Life is busy.
As Drake says, if I ain't dead, I'm dedicated. So
what?
We're always grinding.
If I ain't dead, what?
If I ain't dead,
yeah,
I'm dedicated. It's like a
so
play
what's
on
the
words.
wisdom? Oh,
If I'm not dead,
Oh.
then I'm dedicated. Because we're dedicated to the vision.
I'm not even sure about that wordplay. I think Conscious Rhymes does a better job.
What?
I'm joking. Anyway, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about, inshallah, the concept of accountability.
Yes. I didn't ask because I didn't know. I just asked to get the topic out there. Just in
cool,
case
man.
they're thinking, wait, so do they even know what they're talking about? Do they plan this?
Yeah, just about.
Just about enough to actually talk. Anyway, accountability as a concept, yeah?
Accountability as a concept. I think that's an important concept to discuss because I reckon as we'll discuss hopefully in this podcast, we live in a society has very little accountability.
Sure.
And in many different ways,
yeah.
In many different forms of accountability as well. And I think that it's important then to discuss and understand what is accountability and how do we properly implement it in our lives and in society.
Okay, cool. So then, what is accountability? So, accountability, for me personally, is the idea or the self-consciousness that whatever you do as a person, it fits just you and yourself, or it's you and other people, whatever it is you do with your life. In any scenario, the outcome and the result. Whoa.
I think let me rephrase what you
Rephrase it for
saying.
me. Say it for me.
I think what you're trying to say is that whatever you do, whether it's with just yourself, in a personal circumstance, or with other people, it has a consequence and it has an effect.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, so that, what he said, yeah. So that's what accountability is to me. Now, as a Muslim, obviously we don't just believe in accountability in this life, we believe in accountability in the next life. But anyway, we can get to that in a little while we discuss. But what do you feel like the understanding of accountability is in our society, at least? Do you think there is an understanding, or is there a lack of understanding, or is there even an idea of accountability in this society?
I think living in a Western society, which is based upon secular values, which essentially means to disassociate religion or God from lawmaking and from the way that you make your own laws, even like for yourself. Whether I eat avocados today or eat chicken. Yeah. Like, even in that situation, we're distancing. We're trying to say, in this society anyway, we're trying to say, we should be deciding for ourselves, okay? And we should be making that decision for ourselves, and we should just judge it. We should judge it essentially, if you look at it, it's basically judged upon whether, does this thing benefit me, does this thing harm me? And how do I measure that, right? And this is the problem that a lot of people have in every day-to-day life, because they're going through these conundrums of, is it really beneficial? Is it not beneficial? It seems beneficial to me, I'll do it. And then 5 years down the line, they realise, hang on a sec, it had a really bad effect.
Yeah.
And so this is a real issue in terms of the way that we judge what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong and the decisions that we should make. And so that's why accountability for me is a really important concept to be talking about, because it manifests in every single action and every single thought and every decision we're making in everyday life.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry,
you got
anything? I agree, and I guess we always mention the ayah. I think Surah Al-Baqarah. We always mention that Allah constantly says, or He says it in that ayah. But I'm pretty sure that the concept of accountability is passed in many ayat in the Quran. But Allah says that you could not choose for yourself what you would do, because you don't know what's right and wrong, essentially. When he says that, it's a long ayah, and it may be the case that you hate something and it's good for you. It may be the case that you love something and it's bad for you.
Exactly.
And Allah knows and you know not. So, like you said, this idea from its
it's an ayah that is publicized quite a lot, like, in terms of a lot of people know this ayah because it's made into loads of different quotes and whatever.
Yeah.
Because on a personal sense, I reckon it gives a lot of people a lot of personal hope in terms of like when they're going through certain personal struggles and everything. It makes you feel like, okay, look, I need to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan and everything. But in this situation, it has a different kind of connotation, which is more of the fact that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's not just about trusting.
It's not about benefit and harm, according to what you see as benefit and harm. Go on. Because we're going to keep stopping each other, sorry. Because essentially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the true benefit and he knows the true harm. So for a subjective mind to look at something and say, I think that's beneficial, so I'm going to do it, Allah destroys that idea and makes it seem quite, harmful to the person itself, because he says that it may be bad for you. And that's why it's important for us to develop that.
The beautiful way that people look at it is to say, it's quite publicized as well, is that we see the pixel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the picture. Obviously, you know that images are made from millions and millions of little pixels, little individual dots of colour. And we're just seeing that dot of colour. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has the whole picture, because He has with Him the Lawh al-Mahfuz, which is essentially the book in which He's written everything that will happen, everything that has happened, the tablet, exactly. And so therefore, so in that, we do need to be trusting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of that He knows what is good and bad, but not just like saying, yes, I trust Him, I'm just going to leave it up to Him and I'm just going to let everything happen. We've got to also understand that then manifests into the way that we think. And I think that thinking in terms of halal and haram is very important. And what I mean by this is, I think that a lot of people throw around halal and haram a lot in terms of like just saying this is haram, this is halal, this is halal, this is halal. And I don't think that for many of, especially the fiqh issues, in terms of the everyday kind of like decisions that we're making, a lot of them are not exactly clear cut as this is halal, this is haram, right? So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in hadith and everything, they teach us. If you look at the hadith and look at the way the Prophet ﷺ used to respond to when people used to do something wrong and he would approach them, he wouldn't necessarily just go to them and say this is completely wrong. And, most of the time it would be more of questioning them and getting them to think about why is it that thing is wrong, or trying to explain to them through some other means as to why this might be wrong, or why this might be right. And so therefore it's important then that we have that knowledge of we have that basic knowledge of Islam and of the Quran and of Hadith, so that when we come to these decisions in everyday life, we're thinking in terms of halal and haram, which means we're thinking in terms of what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like and what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislike.
And I guess...
And what has He decreed which is right and what has He decreed which is wrong. And then in that I can make a decision as to whether this thing that I want to do, whether it is correct for me, whether it is bad for me.
And I guess that's a fantastic alternative to just having a very shallow benefit and harm way of life, because essentially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's in our scenarios in Islam, He's the one who's driving our life, He's the one that's telling us how to live it, and He's the best of planners. But anyway, that's in terms of actions and in terms of understanding what's right and wrong. Now of course with actions come accountability. So is there any... Let's talk about knife crime actually. Knife crime is the biggest example where accountability is a missing concept. There is no grounding for accountability, because essentially you've got thousands or hundreds at least, hundreds of stabbings that happen every single year. And the issue seems that people think the issue is with the knife, or the discussions about the knife.
It's always it's even like in America with the gun crimes, they're always just talking about we need to tighten gun laws. We need to do this.
When Trump said, we need to arm teachers, and he was serious about that. And you see the same kind of trend of thought that people are discussing the object and not the idea. The object could be used for good and bad. You know, a knife could be used to, I don't know, cook. You cook, so you know that knives could be useful.
Yeah.
They are useful. You know,
for many things.
Exactly. A gun can be used for a good thing, you know, for hunting or whatever. For just, you know, as a hobby to shoot, whatever. But it's the ideas that people carry. That's what needs to be discussed. And in this case, it's accountability. Why does an individual, why does a 16, 17-year-old, or however old the person is, feel like he can or she can go and stab someone and feel that they can get away with it without feeling any you know, any what's the word? Any shame, not shame, any Guilt, yes, perfect word. They don't feel any guilt. Yeah. They don't feel any sense of accountability. They don't feel like they need to answer to anyone. You know, why is that the case?
I think when it comes to knife crime specifically, because I think this is not specific, obviously, to knife crime or gun crime or these kind of violent crimes. I think this can be placed into many different areas of many different crimes, whether it's robbery or even like just hitting someone, or you know, even the way that you treat people in just society generally. You know, it comes into all of that, right? But I think when it comes to specifically, let's talk about extreme example like knife crime, which we've seen a massive epidemic of recently, especially in like London area. There's been so many stabbings. Every single day we're hearing about a different stabbing. You know, people who are quite close to us as well, like in terms of, I know loads of people, I know so many people who I've heard about, okay, there's been a stabbing in this area, running there to my house, and then I hear someone, oh yeah, that was my friend's brother, or that was my cousin, or you know, subhanAllah, it's like it's so close to home, right? So what we got to talk about this. We've got to talk about stuff that is real, and I think that's then the accountability comes in two parts with that. It comes with the person themselves, how they felt like, I can stab this person. Okay, so personally there is no consequences in terms of they're not thinking about an afterlife. They're not thinking about, you know, the accountability of their Lord, first thing. But secondly, they're not thinking about the accountability of the government upon them, because essentially there isn't much accountability, you know. Exactly. Jails are actually glorified exactly. First you get respect for it in gang culture, but also they for a lot of people, you gotta understand some of the deep rooted causes of why someone goes towards killing someone, right? And these people generally, they come from very broken homes in terms of, like, you know, their father is non-existent in their lives, so they haven't had a proper family structure. You know, then they're bullied at school, or they don't fit into these crowds, they don't fit into that crowd, then they get pushed into this crowd. Generally they come from very poor areas where there seems as though there's no way out of the poverty. And so the crime or the gangs, they offer them a route to gain some money,
quick buck,
exactly, and to have an acceptance, and to maybe come out of that poverty, right? And so it's really damaging. It's a cycle, right? But you've got all these factors, and then they live in areas which aren't safe. You know, they aren't properly regulated. They aren't properly, you know, like the police. The police are just stopping every black man everywhere. You know, so the people in poor areas don't exactly feel like the police they can trust the police. You know, who are meant to be trusted and protected in the community and protecting the communities, because the police are just stereotyping everyone and just you know. So it's like you've got all these different problems, and then on top of that, a main thing which stops someone, even if you had all those problems, something which might stop someone from doing an action, even if they had all these broken background, is the fact that, well, there's a consequence. Yeah,
exactly. And I think you're right in terms of we can't look at any issue or any problem in isolation. There's always different factors that lead up to the issue becoming an issue. And in this case, like you said, I think there's a huge discussion that needs to be had in terms of why is it that most of these people that commit knife crimes or any type of crimes come from broken homes or come from a very poor background. You know, where is the role of the establishment? Where is the role of the government to, you know, pump money into these areas? Why does Chelsea, what's the area called?
Chelsea,
and what's it called?
Kensington. Chelsea,
they get a stupid amount of funding, and they're rich.
And it's ridiculous in terms of, like, you can see the amount of funding in terms of, like, just the upkeep of the public parks and the pathways and everything there is you see, everything is so pristine and nice to make sure that those people who live in that area, who, yes, they're rich, but they also own a lot of businesses and they're also pumping a lot of money into the economy.
Exactly.
So they're directly benefiting the government. That's a main link that we have to make. Why is it that those areas are getting loads of funding and make sure their streets are nice and clean and everything, when in like other areas like where we live, we've got so much, we see so much homelessness, we see so much poverty.
What's that called?
Grenfell Tower is
subhanAllah, is the prime example of an area that's been neglected. Why is it that,
and it's still neglected, even after so much talk about it and so much expose of, look at the direct links that you have. I think we talked about on another episode, we were talking about the way that the Celotex, the cut is owned by the CEO of the Celotex, which is the company which made the cladding on the building. They're best friends with the Home Secretary or something like that. So it's like, you can see, and then the landlords of all the different houses of that area, they're all the MPs of that area. So obviously, they have a vested interest in
there's a lot of fishy things. Out.
Exactly. It's like, at the end of the day, there's no accountability even for them, right? Even for those MPs and everyone. There should be accountability for the people ruling the country and making the laws as well, but there's no accountability for them, and so therefore they feel like, yes, I can get away with this. I can get away with cheaply making some block of flats so that even if it does go up in flames like Grenfell did and everyone dies, this doesn't matter because my name's not anywhere, my business is still running, I'm still getting my money, I'm still getting support from the government, like all of this stuff. And then look at Theresa May and the government, like the bodies of the government. You might have some poor areas which are speaking out against it, but essentially there's not much being said in terms of there's nothing being done against them. Like she still just basically got away with, doing
what she done. And I guess again, this
neglect.
is where
got away with neglect.
This is where the concept of accountability really kicks in, and we see there is a lack of it even in different on different levels. Now we're talking about accountability for our society in terms of knife crime as an example. But like we said, now we just pushed it out to the government and we see that there is no accountability for them. And subhanallah, we know in Islam accountability is not only in the akhirah, accountability is not only in the afterlife. We know, for example, on a government level, the Islamic ruler, he is not able to do what he feels like, and he is accountable to a certain body which is named Mahkamah al-Madalim, the court of justice, who actually can overpower him, who have the power to overthrow him if he steps out of line and he commits, kufr bawah, or if he is if he's doing something which is shara reason to remove him from power, the Mahkamah al-Madalim, the court of injustice in Islam, has the power to remove the Islamic leader from power, which we don't see. One more example. Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he was the leader of the Muslims, was it not him that was when he used to have meetings, or him or Abu Bakr? They used to have meetings and during the night, and the candles would be on. And when they would stop talking about the Ummah's affairs, 100%. They would turn the candle off, and they would say to him, Ya bil mu'mineen, why are you turning the candle off? He would say, because this is the Ummah's resources and this is not for me to use. Where is that accountability gone on a government level where today? It doesn't exist. And we see that, it causes much more damage than just to the person. Because, the person is accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and essentially he might ruin his afterlife. But within that same discussion, that person is ruining other people's lives.
I think what's really important to point out there is the way that we look at Amir al-Mu'mineen like Abu Bakr and Umar and Ali and Uthman, and obviously they were, alhamdulillah, the four Khulafa Rashadat who had said that these people are on the correct method. So we look at them and we look at the way they ruled, and even with things that seem so menial, such as the drop of a wax of candlelight, right? They were so careful because for two reasons, right? First thing is that they had the accountability in themselves, understood the accountability from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question every single thing I do, every decision I make, every single drop of wax that drops from that candle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question that and say, that drop of wax was from the Ummah's money. Okay? So why were you talking about
your personal
affairs when you were using the Ummah's money? Okay? Even when it comes to little things like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that they had the backing of the accountability of the state that they ran as well. The fact that the people could account them.
Yep.
So there's a really beautiful story that I read, and it made me tear up. And I was thinking about why specifically did it make me tear up. And I think it's because I just gained such a beautiful appreciation for the way that Umar Khattab as a leader was so sincere in his leadership, and how he understood accountability. There was, during his rule, obviously he expanded the Islamic State quite far in the lands.
Yeah.
And so in Egypt, so he was in Medina, and in Egypt, Amr ibn al-As was the wali, the leader of Egypt. And I think his son, they had a slave, right? And they did some racing or something like that, some horse racing, whatever. The slave basically beat him in the race. And after the race, Amr ibn al-As's son went to the slave and said, "How dare you beat me? You know, I am the son of Amr ibn al-As, the leader of this land. How dare you beat me?" And he hit him. Now this slave, imagine obviously like the status of a slave in society is generally lowered anyway, right? Like in terms of the way that we think of them. We think of that kind of...
it's got a lot of connotations
yeah,
to it,
exactly. And I think he was also black. So in terms of just in the way that society, even back in the day, the way that they just viewed people of darker colour, they already viewed them in a lower position. So imagine he had everything going against him. Yeah, he was a slave. He was black. He was the slave of the master's slave as well. So it's like he had no rights because he was from the noble family slave, right? He took a camel and he rode all the way to Medina to account Umar al-Khattab, the Amir al-Mu'min of the entire state, which was massive at this time. Yeah, he went to him and said, "Look, I have been mistreated. I have been hit, okay, unjustly." Umar al-Khattab, he holed him up in a little house. He said, "You stay here for about however long it takes to ride a camel all the way from Egypt to like about a month or so, I've heard." Yeah. So he gave him a house and everything. He paid for his expenses, and he called Amr al-As and his son, and he said, "You need to come to Medina to be accounted." So they came, and he asked them what happened, and they said, "Yeah, this is what happened. The son hit the slave," and he said he gave a whip to the slave, and he said, "You can lash his son and Amr al-As."
Wow.
And Amr al-As said, "Well, why me?" Sorry, I think the slave said to Amr al-As, "Why Amr al-As? He didn't hit me." And Umar al-Khattab said, "It was in his name that you were hit." So therefore he gets the whip as well. Now the thing is that, look, it's confusing, right, as to why is he making him getting hit? But it's such accountability in terms of he needs to set the example straight, right? That even the fact that his name was used as a noble person in that society, the fact that his name was used to do this action, it will also be accounted for, under the state. And I think what's so beautiful and why I teared up on that story, and when Umar Khattab said this one thing, and he said, when the slave asked him, he said, after all this, everything happened, he said to Umar and his son, he said to him, "How can you enslave a man that was born free?" All right, I just thought it's such a beautiful statement, subhanallah, that actually the act of freeing a slave is such a beautiful thing in Islam, in terms of it's such a rewarding thing. So Islam actually came to get rid of slavery in terms of, especially the way that it was manifesting in that society, and it gave rights to the slaves.
Yep, it was. I think the word slave has a lot of connotations to it. That refers to Western slavery. Slavery is, to be honest, personally, I don't use the word slave when talking.
It's difficult.
The word abd in Arabic does not mean a slave according to American history. It's a social class.
It's a very, very different
understanding and reality that was exactly. It was a social class. Anyway, it's a discussion to be had another time, but it's totally different for anyone listening. Abd in Islam is not a slave in the same way that America had slaves. It's a complete different universe of understanding.
Definitely, but even so, Islam came to give rights to them and to make sure that freeing them is one of the most rewarding things.
Yeah.
And anyway, what was so beautiful to me is the fact that Umar al-Khattab, the Amir, this is the head of the state, like who in this country can just go up to Theresa May and just say, I am accounting you? You go up near the houses of Parliament, you go up near 10 down the street, you get shot because they got home guns there, them man, innit? Like, you can't even go near 10 down the street, right? Well, this is the beauty of Islam, is that slave, he came all the way from Egypt to Medina to count him personally and say, what are you doing for me? You know, I am a citizen under your state. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows me to account you.
Yeah.
You know? And the fact that Umar Khattab, as a Muslim, as someone sincere in Islam, has that personal accountability as well. He knows that he's going to be questioned. And I think that's what's so beautiful about accountability. It brings to account, you have to account yourself, and you allow everyone else to account you as well.
I guess accountability today has been kind of washed down to this personal level. But like we just discussed, and like you just said, you know, I told the story of Amr bin As and Umar bin Khattab and the son of Amr bin As. Accountability in Islam, it spreads to different levels of society, to the government, to the individual, to the community, you know, and it's a very, very holistic understanding of accountability. And I guess someone might ask, oh, but you know, it's still the person stabbing, the person who's choosing to stab. But like we said at the start,
knife crimes,
exactly. Things don't happen in a vacuum. You can't look at any event or any action in a vacuum, because different factors lead up to certain actions being done. And these stories actually kind of make you appreciate how Islam deals with the issue from top to bottom. You know, if the government is built on the concept of accountability, then the people automatically are built upon the concept of accountability.
And once one adopts Islam in his heart as well, then they have the understanding of the accountability of the self as well.
Exactly.
And you have it from both directions now.
Like, can you imagine a society that's built upon, which was the case under Umar al-Khattab, for example, like you said, a society that's built upon the idea of one ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى. Did he not know that Allah is watching?
SubhanAllah.
That one ayah, bro, can just turn a whole society around. Because the issue that we find with I'm talking about a lot about knife crime, but it's because it's very
topical.
Yeah, and it's very sensitive, and we see it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? We see it in London. You know, the issue that people have with knife crime on a personal level. Yeah, like I said, I want to make it clear that knife crime in itself, the people who commit knife crimes, you can't just look at them in isolation and blame them and the knife, because the knife is not haram to use itself. The action is haram. Anyway. People don't have the idea, even Muslims, because this is a bonus, a lot of Muslims are involved in knife crime as well. A lot of Muslims are involved in knife crime.
Unfortunately, but yeah.
Living in a society, they kind of forget that accountability goes past this life. Because I've heard it first person. People say, as long as I get away, in their terms, in road terms, as long as I get away from Fed, then I'm cool. As long as I get, no English, as long as I get away from police, then I'm fine. How dangerous is that? In Dagenham, there was a study done here. This made me feel disgusting. There was a study done where a number of men said if they could get away with rape from the police, they would happily do it. Rape, yeah. And there's the thing. The issue of knife crime, yes, it is the most prominent one right now. It's the most common one in terms of where it highlights the lack of accountability. But there are many issues where accountability as a concept is near extinct. It doesn't exist. And as we see, look, we're going to see this over and over again as we live on. You're going to see more, devastating results because this idea lacks. Because people don't have the understanding that life is not just about, this life. It goes past it.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment will bring your entire life in front of you. And this is what the Day of Judgment is about. Is the Day of Judgment.
Yeah. Hey, that's accountability, yes.
I say it.
Accountability.
Yeah. Where your good deeds and your bad deeds will be weighed, It's like, this life is all about accountability. And actually when you were saying before about how about the ayah,
do you not know?
Look at sorry.
Which one?
I forgot the name of the ayah.
Oh, the one good and bad? Or did he know
that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching?
Oh, did he not know that Allah is watching?
Exactly. Well, obviously we know the famous hadith in about where the Jibreel alayhi salam, he comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Sahaba see him, and he comes dressed in all white, and he comes as basically he came as in very pristine clothes, and the thing is that he was not known in the area, so everyone knew that he must have been a traveller. But they were like, how did this man travel across the whole desert and not get a single dust on his clothes? He's got such white
fresh
clothes.
gums.
Exactly. So he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked 3 questions, and I won't go through all of them, but he asked about what is Islam, what is Islam, what is the other one?
What is Iman?
What is Islam, what is Iman, and then what is Ihsan? And Ihsan is obviously the highest level of a believer can be. So you can be a Muslim. Muslim means that you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and essentially means you've taken the Shahada. The next level above that is a Mu'min, is when you have attained Iman. And the level above that, which is the highest level, is being a Muhsin, when you've attained Ihsan. Perfection, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't have a direct meaning, but essentially people...
English is quite limited in terms of translating Arabic words. Yeah.
But what did he say is perfection? What did he say is Ihsan? It's when you worship Allah as though you see Him.
SubhanAllah.
And when you understand the gravity of that, it is accountability. It is accountability, because it's all about you worship Allah as though you see Him. It's like, for example, when I know that my mum doesn't like me doing something, for example, I don't know, I can't give you an example. I know my mum doesn't like me doing something.
That's how I know.
When she's there, I know I'm not going to do that thing. You know what I'm saying? Because she's watching me, and I know she's watching me. In the same way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching us, and though we can't see Him, but we worship Him as though we see Him. As though it is, look, I can see Him watching me. That is so beautiful, and also it shows how important accountability in everything is, because Islam is not just a spiritual... It's not a religion. I always say this, I hate using the term religion.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that word either.
Because in English, religion is
it's a very personal thing.
Exactly. And also, anyone can get religion. You know, if I decide today I want to worship this pillow, I have created my own religion.
What's that Star Wars thing you were telling me about the
other
other
day?
Yeah,
we're talking about Jedi or something like that. I thought you mentioned another... Yeah. It's not right. Do repetitions here, man.
No, because I remember it was funny.
No, like if I decide I want to worship this pillow today, I have created a religion, and anyone essentially is free to do that, right? But Islam is not a religion. Islam is a decree of how you should think and how you should live your life, and essentially it's an ideology which we adopt. It's something that we say, you know what, I'm gonna adopt the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides every single aspect of every way that I live my life. You know, the way that I go to the toilet, the way that I walk, the way that I legislate, the way that I treat people, the way that I eat, the way that... in everything, you know. It's not just about spiritual. It's not just about the way you worship. It's about the way that you interact with society. And so therefore, if attaining ihsan is the highest level that a Muslim can get to, then that means that the highest level that a Muslim can get to is to realise his vulnerability in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the fact that he's accountable.
I think a very beautiful ayah which illustrates accountability again, is the ayah that we were talking about before the podcast actually. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة. Allah says, well, in translation, when people see wala, they think that. So in Arabic, when Allah says wala أقسم بالنفس اللوامة, it means he's actually swearing by it. So even when he says wala, like even he says what, people think
wala essentially could be seen as 2 words, wa and la, right?
And no. I don't swear by the soul. Lawama means that blames itself and accounts itself. But no, in Arabic, that's actually a form of affirming that Allah is making that oath. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by something, we know it's a great matter. It's a great matter.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that His oath is haqq. He says wa'adul haqq, right?
Exactly.
So that means that His promise is truth. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears upon something, then it means that when He swears upon things in the Quran all the time, you know, we know that it is truth firstly, but also that it holds great weight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by what? This soul, this nafs, which holds this concept that we're talking about. al-lawama, which blames itself, which accounts itself. Why? Because it understands that everything it does, everything it says, everything it looks at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask it about.
I think that's quite beautiful, because I think on a personal level, I think this plays into thinking about intentions, and what our intentions are in terms of when we do stuff quite well, because on a personal level, when we're thinking, we do actions every day and we make decisions every day of things that we're doing, and essentially we should be doing everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. Yeah, if we are truly Muslim, which means to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely, right? In everything that you do for Him, right? That means that we need to be constantly checking our intentions, and I think that ayah beautifully describes that, because it's the soul that blames itself, the soul that realizes, look, I am influenced by my desires, by the whispers of shaitan, and I need to, plays into arrogance as well, because I need to get rid of that arrogance firstly, humble myself in front of my Lord, and then check my intentions and account myself. And that's where accountability comes in the self as well, and in everyday interactions, because alhamdulillah, we should talk about like the societal things. We should also talk about us as individuals and how we live in our life. And it brings to mind another ayah. I don't know the Arabic of the ayah, but I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically says that if and when, essentially, when you come across and you have these interactions which annoy you, it's basically when you come across people who annoy you, respond to them with salam. Right? This is I forgot this. Yeah.
I can't remember the full ayah as well, but I know the end of it. Yeah.
But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us that, look, when in every day in your life, there are always going to be people who annoy you and who frustrate you and who you disagree with maybe, and who and we're always going to have these interactions which could lead to a lot of anger and arrogance in terms of the way that you interact with people. And I think what's important is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says respond with salam. So account yourself in the way that you want to respond to that person. Are you responding to them with salam for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake firstly, or are you responding to them with anger to satisfy your own desire just to get at them?
I think a beautiful quote that settles within me is, account yourself before Allah counts you. It's a very simple 100%. Quote, but it goes a long way. It goes a long way, because we do end up sometimes as individuals, trying to get things or do things to satisfy ourselves, even though we know it's wrong. Like you said, in a situation where someone may, be triggered or angry, he might try to, get justice for himself, even though it may be wrong.
Yeah, and
and I'll tell you,
it's so many different situations. It's not just like, some people might be thinking it's just like people getting angry and punching someone, or like it's even like in so many personal situations. Like, subhanallah, I see it in myself all the time. When I'm looking at the way I respond to.
He's always angry. I'm joking.
I mean, like, in the way that I'm responding to people, even the way that I treat, like, my siblings, for example. Sometimes they're a bit younger than me. Sometimes they annoy me, And yeah, they're annoying at times. But it is better for me to be calm, to still show them love, to not let myself get frustrated, and to change my tone with them. At the end of the day, it's not worth it. And I need to be accounting myself constantly, so that I need to become, I think what we need to do is to, like, a practical thing that you can do is to get into the habit of accounting yourself constantly, so that when you get into these situations, you're doing it straight away. You're accounting yourself, you're stopping yourself before you speak. And I think it reminds me of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. He used to put stones in his mouth, under his tongue, so that when he wanted to say something, the stones would fall out of his mouth, or he'd feel the stones there, and it would force him to think before he spoke. And it forced him to think, what am I saying? What are the intentions I have to say this? Should I say it, or should I just stay silent? Is it better for me to stay silent? Or is there a better way that I can say this? Wow. Like, that's a very physical way of him, like you could.
That's embodying the idea.
Exactly, so kind of like he really embodies it. But we're not saying everyone put flipping stones in your mouth, like that's unrealistic, right? But once we can get into a habit of accounting ourselves constantly, then I think that will be really beneficial. I think for me, especially, it'd be beneficial in just everyday life, just understanding what I'm doing.
Definitely.
And responding with salam and doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake.
Look, it goes back to what we said. Accountability is a solution for the individual on a personal level, for the society on a societal level, to deal with many different issues, and on a government level, as we discussed. It goes from making you a person who is cautious and considerate for what you say to other people as an individual. It makes the society cautious and considerate in terms of what it does to each other.
Yeah.
And on a government level, it makes the governments appreciate that the responsibility of governing is accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So
it is accountability from all angles to satisfy all any kind of cause that might cause some kind of problem.
And I think this again just highlights the importance of being accountable. Because imagine that someone doesn't feel like he's accountable to anyone. How detrimental is that? And that's what you find sometimes is the issue. People don't feel like they're accountable to anyone.
Yeah.
Individually.
So they feel like they can do anything.
Yeah, individually, on a government level.
Yeah.
Srebrenica happened recently. If they felt accountable to anyone,
what's that?
Huh?
What is that?
Srebrenica, I said, I looked at it, you don't know about it, sorry. So Srebrenica was, I can't remember the year,
1992.
Very, very early 90s, I believe, yeah. Was when the Serbs, under General, I can't remember his name, you can search it up, they literally just walked in and massacred the Bosnian Muslims in their thousands, without any accountability. They walked in and the UN done nothing about it. So accountability was absent, if you like. And that's, again, this is one of the results of the lack of accountability. If the general himself, who's apparently in prison right now, was accountable, or felt that he was going to be accountable, he wouldn't have done such a thing. And we know in Islam that the punishment of taking someone's life is your life taken away, quite frankly, and we don't shy away from that, because Islam deals with issues.
I think an important thing to note there as well is that obviously we see so many atrocities being laid against so many different people today by rulers, by tyrants, okay, and they don't feel the accountability because they aren't accounted. There is no body to account them, right? So therefore, really, I think we as individuals, and especially I think we were discussing last episode with the Sudan situation, the power of social media and the power of having that voice and that platform and actually being able to reach so many people. We need to be accounting these people. We need to be the ones who are exposing them for their atrocities, exposing them for the problems that they're causing, and understanding and exposing the ideas which cause those problems in those people as well, and accounting that. We need to be doing that because no one else is accounting them. There's no body to account them, so who's going to account them then, isn't it?
Exactly.
As we said, I think we say this every week because it is such a powerful hadith. If you see an oppression, change it with your hand. If you can't, change it with your tongue. If you can't, hate it in your heart, and that is the lowest of Iman.
Definitely, absolutely, definitely.
So use your tongues, people.
Yeah.
And use your fingers, that's the action. Fingers to type.
Yeah. He would make this comment. Do you know what last week's one?
Don't even. Don't even.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah.
Jazakallah khairan. I think that was a great in-depth discussion about accountability as a concept and the way it manifests in so many different ways and so many different aspects of life, whether it's personally, individually, on a societal level, on a government level, or on a level where we're thinking about the afterlife. And I think that we all need to be working on accounting ourselves and accounting and having a body of who accounts each other, because that's important.
Yeah,
to deal with the problems of our society.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khairan for listening to this episode of the Staying Woke podcast. Inshallah, we will be back soon with another episode 5.
Inshallah.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a 5-star rating. If you're listening on iTunes, Castbox, you can check us out everywhere. Make sure to share this podcast about, help spread awareness of what we're doing.
Yep.
And if you've got any
ideas,
feedback, any
topics
topics you want us to discuss, anything, drop us an email, stayingwokepodcast@gmail.com, or drop us a DM on Instagram @stayingwokepodcast. Any last remarks?
Keep an eye out for episode 5. It's going to be a good one.
Inshallah.
Wait, is this episode 5?
This is episode 4.
Sorry. Yeah, keep an eye out for episode 5. It's going to be a very good one, inshallah.
Cool.
I promise. If you can't see, I'm tapping my forehead.
No problem.
Yeah, I think we should just end it there before I make it even more awkward.
Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
See you later. Sorry.
Why did you do that at the end?